Ezra Miller is the new Flash for the Flash movie, and Ezra Miller sure isn't the favorite, but when it comes to the movie's plot and characters, it's actually looking pretty cool. And to be honest, I may not enjoy the fact that Ezra is the Flash, but I am extremely excited to see what DC will do with the storyline. The issue that people are having with Ezra Miller though is the allegations. Ezra says things that are extremely gross, does provocative things, and even threw a chair at a lady once. Warner Brothers did say that Ezra is getting help, however. Now, if I have to admit, Ezra could have been a decent Flash, although Ezra would build a hole far deeper as time goes on. And Hollywood doesn't care at all. As a matter of fact, I think they encourage Ezra to attend counseling, which I believe they do now after finishing filming The Flash. But the whole ordeal of The Flash is literally only being held up by everything except Ezra. Batman, General Zod, Supergirl, Superman possibly, and several others are highlights of the movie. Then again, I love The Flash. I dressed as him as a kid for Halloween, and sometimes at home whenever I was bored. Then I realized, wow, Ezra Miller took the Flash by the neck and choked it till it squealed.
And make him squeal.
Grant Gustin isn't mad or anything about it either, because he is a legendary actor for Barry Allen and The Flash himself. But in the meantime, when the movie comes out, we will see if Ezra Miller will have an attachment to The Flash and Barry Allen, or if it'll be a complete disconnect. And as for the real explanation as to why I believe Ezra Miller will never be the real Flash, here are the allegations and stories leading up to Ezra Miller's psychotic behavior. February of 2020, when filming for Fantastic Beasts, The Secrets of Dumbledore was halted due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Miller reportedly took up residence at an Airbnb in an Iceland suburb along with artists, expats, and spiritual confidants. According to an August 4th Business Insider report, one anonymous woman who compared the house to a commune felt like everyone was hypnotized. Miller reportedly paid for food, weed, and lodging at the Airbnb, where they were said to have held speeches about spirituality and alluding to possessing spiritual powers. Several sources told Business Insider they were afraid of Miller's emotional outbursts. April 1st of 2020, in a since-deleted tweet, a disturbing video alleges to show Miller choking a woman and throwing her to the ground at a bar in Iceland. Variety confirms that the altercation took place at the trendy bar and employees identify Miller in the video, who they escort from the premises. A 7-second clip makes its rounds on Twitter on April 6th and shows that person saying, "Oh, you wanna fight? That's what you wanna do?" to a woman in a bar. She appears to be jokingly readying herself for a fight. The person identified as Miller then grabs the woman by the throat and throws her to the ground. "Whoa bro," says the person filming the incident. A source at the bar tells Variety that the situation began after a pushy fan confronted Miller, until Miller physically attacks the woman. Restaurant staff escort Miller from the premises. They are not under investigation by authorities following the incident. That month, Business Insider later reported Miller rented out parts of a hotel in northern Iceland to record music with local musicians. A young woman who was 18 at the time began a relationship with Miller during the 6 days she stayed at the hotel. Ezra was super manipulative. "They kind of have us all under their fingers," she said, describing several verbal altercations. "They were able to twist and pull everything that I thought I knew about the world." January 28th of 2022. In a since-deleted video posted to their Instagram account, Miller tells members of a Northern Carolina chapter of the KKK to KYS themselves with their own guns, or else, quote, "we'll do it for you if that's what you want." It's unclear if Miller is responding to a specific incident, but the video does go viral on social media. March 4th of 2022. Asking for It premieres. The revenge film tackles assault and co-stars Ezra Miller, and apparently the director allegedly punches a trans comedian, Grace Freud, twice in the head. March 27th of 2022. The Flash enters the Speed Force. In the Snyder Cut of the Justice League, wins the Oscars fan favorite moment. March 27th of 2022. Miller is arrested in Hawaii and charged with disorderly conduct and harassment following a physical confrontation with patrons at a karaoke bar. In a public statement from the Hawaii Police Department, the police alleged that Miller became, quote, agitated while patrons began singing at a karaoke rendition of Shallow from A Star Is Born. They began yelling obscenities at the patrons and grabbed a microphone from a woman singing karaoke and later lunged at a man playing darts, according to the police. The bar owner asked Miller to calm down several times to no avail. Miller's $500 bail is paid by a couple they live with at a hotel. March 29th of 2022. The couple who lived with Miller at the hotel file a restraining order against the actor. Documents obtained by Radar Online, the couple asked the court to order Miller to not contact them in any form and stay away from their home and places of work. Following the incident at the karaoke bar, the couple claims that Miller returned home and threatened the couple, saying, quote, "I will bury you and your wife." The petition alleges that Miller stole the wife's passport and the husband's wallet, which contains his credit cards, social security card, and driver's license. It's unclear whether the items were returned. A judge grants the couple the restraining order the following day. The order is dropped in mid-April. April 6 of 2022. Sources tell Rolling Stone that Warner Brothers and DC executives held an emergency impromptu meeting to discuss Miller's recent controversies and their future with the studio, involving Miller including possible appearances in the DC Extended Universe. An inside source says that Miller had, quote, frequent meltdowns during last year's production of The Flash, although the sources stresses that Miller did not yell or have violent outbursts. April 19th of 2022. 3 weeks after their March arrests, the actor was again taken into custody in Hawaii for allegedly throwing a chair which hit a woman at a private party, leaving the 26-year-old woman with a half-inch cut on her forehead. In a public statement from Hawaii police, authorities say that Miller was arrested around 1 a.m. during a traffic stop and released from custody around 4 a.m. pending further investigation. In May 16, 2022, a musician and rapper claimed that Miller stole the music they worked on and posted it on social media without credits. Musician and Miller met up in both the Northeast and Hawaii to collaborate on new music. Weeks before their first arrest in Hawaii, the musician plans to file a court order to Miller to take the music down. The link to the songs are no longer featured on Miller's Instagram bio. June 8th of 2022. The parents of 18-year-old activist Gibson Iron Eyes accused Miller of grooming their child. In the court documents, Gibson's parents, attorney, and activist Chase Iron Eyes are alleging that Miller has been involved with their child since they were 12. A judge signed the request for a protective order, which says Miller cannot contact the child Sarah or Chase or be within 100 yards of their residence. Gibson and Miller met when they were both protesting for the land back reclamation movement. In Standing Rock in 2016, according to court documents, Miller allegedly flew Gibson to London in 2017 to visit the set of Fantastic Beasts. Gibson was 14 at the time and Ezra was 25. Their parents allege Miller tried to sleep in the same bed as Gibson and provided Gibson with alcohol and marijuana and LSD. The parents go on to accuse the actor of influencing Gibson in their decision to drop out of their private school in Massachusetts in December of 2021. Miller offered to pay their tuition when Gibson was 16, and parents believe this has created a sense of indebtedness. They add that when they flew to Vermont in January to check on Gibson, their child had bruises on their body and was not in possession of their own driver's license, car keys, or bank card. Since then, Gibson and Ezra had been traveling together, Gibson's parents claim. They were spotted in Hawaii together in a video. Ezra uses violence, intimidation, threat of violence, fear, paranoia, delusions, and drugs to hold sway over a young adolescent. A hearing is scheduled as of January 12th in 2022. Gibson issued a statement on Instagram on June 6th in which they accused their parents of being, quote, transphobic and deny the allegations. Quote, "I dropped out of Bard 5 months ago. My friend and comrade William passed shortly thereafter. My mind was incredibly impacted, and I've needed space and time for the processing of grief. Quote, my comrade Ezra Miller, for the entirety of aforementioned era, has only provided loving support and invaluable protection throughout this period of loss. Quote, my father and his allegations hold no weight and are frankly transphobic and based on the notion that I am somehow incapable of coherent thought or possessing opinions of those of my own kindred, worrying about my well-being." Gibson continued, quote, "I am now aware of the severity of emotional and psychological manipulation I was made to endure while in my parents' home." The previous day, Gibson had posted a video on Instagram of themselves and Miller smoking cigarettes. June 9th of 2022, Gibson's parents say that Miller and Gibson remain, quote, on the run. While the court has not been able to locate or serve the actor because their whereabouts are unknown, Gibson releases a video statement on Instagram saying, quote, nobody is controlling my Instagram account. and expresses disappointment in the press coverage. Quote, "It's really distressing that the narrative of the victim in question is not being granted any trust. I worked really hard to make really clear what is going on," they said in the video. "If the statements are too profoundly contrasting to whatever assumptions those of us have garnered and have chosen to carry, I'd like to say that it's nobody's business and nobody is owed a story or an outcome," end quote. June 10th, 2022. Miller has yet to be served, Gibson's parents tell the Los Angeles Times. June 15th of 2022. Miller appears to have deleted their Instagram as reported by CBR. After posting memes to their story that may have been alluding to authorities' inability to find them, quote, "I am shielded from negative people and their ill intent. My spirit, mind, body, soul, plus success are not altered by anyone's envy." One post read, quote, "I am protected from all negative NRG people attempt to throw at me. Subconsciously and consciously, I clear any and all hidden peers who are hidden enemies." June 16th of 2022, the Daily Beast publishes a report speaking with an alleged victim of Miller's, a 12-year-old non-binary child who alleges that they were targeted by Miller. On Wednesday, June 15th, the child and their mother were granted a temporary harassment prevention order against Miller, claiming that the actor menaced the family on the evening of February 2nd at their neighbor's downstairs apartment and acted inappropriately towards the child. The case was filed at their local courthouse in Greenfield, Massachusetts. Miller came into contact with the family due to their connections with their family's neighbor, who is in a band with Miller's friend Whitney Sutters. Quote, "Miller was wearing a bulletproof vest and I had no idea until later they were armed," the neighbor told the Daily Beast. According to the neighbor, the evening went sideways after the mother called her friends, quote, "her tribe," causing Miller, whom they believed to be, quote, "under the influence," to accuse her of cultural appropriation. Ezra then got into an altercation with their neighbor and snapped after this interaction. The neighbor alleges, quote, "They opened up their jacket. They had this, big Sherpa jacket, and they opened up one side of their jacket. You could see a gun, and they said, talking like that could get you into a really serious situation." After this altercation, Miller allegedly began to harass the mother and the then 11-year-old child, telling the parents that they were equipped to mentor the child. "I've talked extensively with your child." Quote, "I've talked extensively with your child, and they have a lot of power to them. At one point, you're going to realize that you don't have any control over them anymore. They're an elevated being, and they would be lucky to have someone like me guide them," Miller said. According to the neighbor, mother, and child, the trio claimed that Miller additionally asked the mother if she would like to drink their blood because she dresses in a goth style. The child accuses Miller of uncomfortably moving their chair closer to them, hugging them, and touching their hips. The child alleges that Miller asked them to follow them on Instagram and told the child that they would purchase horses for them to raise on their Vermont farm. Quote, "It was really uncomfortable. I was really nervous. I was scared to be around them after he'd yelled at my mother and she was crying," the child remembers. According to the report by the Daily Beasts, Miller returned to the home dressed as a cowboy on June 4th to apologize. June 23rd of 2022. A Rolling Stone investigation revealed that a 25-year-old woman and her 3 children ages 1 to 5 had been living at the Flash actor's Vermont farm in a roommate situation that worries the children's father, as well as 2 sources close to the situation. The 2 sources say they're concerned with the living arrangements because Miller's home has unattended guns strewn across the living room and mature marijuana plants growing on the property. According to one of the sources, the 1-year-old child allegedly played with a loose bullet and placed it in her mouth. According to Instagram posts reviewed by the site, the mother and children, who remains anonymous, appear to still be living at the Vermont farm. Rolling Stone asked why the father has not confronted Miller or gone to the police. Quote, "I don't want the children to see anything like that. I just want them to see that, hey, dad showed up. Let's get in the car and go. It's been traumatic enough," he says. June 30th of 2022, a woman identified as Nadia alleges to Variety that Miller harassed her in Germany in February of 2022. She and Miller had a consensual encounter in 2020 and were friends for 2 years before she invited them to her Berlin apartment. She alleges that she was worried that the actor could, quote, "somehow attack me physically," after she told them they couldn't smoke in her apartment that night. "That just set them off," Nadia recalls. Quote, "I asked them to leave about 20 times, maybe more. They started insulting me. I am transphobic piece of I'm a..." It became so stressful for me. She adds that Miller subsequently went around her house in a way that felt disgusting and very intrusive, touching everything and spreading tobacco leaves on the floor. According to Nadia, it took a call to the police and a half hour of pleading before she convinced Miller to leave. In the Variety piece, the woman who Miller appeared to choke in the Iceland in April of 2020 gives her account of the incident. Before the scuffle, she spoke to an actor at the bar about scrapes on their feet that were visible in flip-flops. According to the woman who remains anonymous, Miller explained that the wounds were battle scars from a fight. At the end of the conversation, she reportedly joked, quote, "But just so you know, I could take you in a fight." When they asked if she really wanted to fight, she told them to meet her in a smoking area in 2 minutes. Miller eventually confronted her outside of the bar. Quote, "I think it's just fun and games, but then it wasn't," she remembers. August 8th of 2022. The Vermont State Police confirms that Miller has been charged with the offense of felony burglary into an unoccupied dwelling. In Stamford, Vermont, the Vermont State Police confirms that Miller has been charged with the offense of felony burglary into an unoccupied dwelling in Stamford, Vermont. According to a police report, several bottles of alcohol were taken from the home. Probable cause was found after a review of surveillance videos and statements, and Miller was issued a citation on August 7th. They were scheduled to appear in a court on September 26th of 2022. August 15th of 2022. Through a representative, Miller issues a statement revealing that they are being treated for, quote, complex mental health issues. After having recently, quote, gone through a time of intense crisis, Miller apologizes to anyone who has been alarmed or upset by their past behavior, and commits to returning to a, quote, healthy, safe, and productive stage of life. September 18th of 2022, a report from Vanity Fair reveals new details about Miller, including the actor's manipulative behavior and, quote, whack-a-mole legal strategy. These actors' legal problems, because Miller has reportedly paid off alleged victims and issued non-disclosure agreements. The charges were pressed for the incidents in Iceland, and other charges, like the ones made in Hawaii, have been subsequently dropped. Miller is, however, scheduled to appear in Vermont court on September 26th for arraignment on a felony burglary charge. Miller is the subject of an ongoing Massachusetts investigation into the relationship with the unnamed 12-year-old non-binary child. The Vanity Fair reports details Miller's allegedly emotionally abusive behavior. Miller's former fiancée, Erin, told Vanity Fair that Miller gaslit her. Quote, "For years he convinced me, all our friends, that I was abusive," she said. But looking back, I would be calling out his disrespect, and he wouldn't take responsibility and just call me abusive because of my reaction. Another source close to the actor said, "The way I describe it is it's like you're in a non-consensual emotional BDSM relationship with Ezra." Miller's upcoming film, The Flash, will still release this year of 2023, and the actor is reportedly working with the producers to shoot additional scenes. October 17th of 2022, Miller pleads not guilty to one count of each burglary for charges of stealing liquor from their neighbor's unoccupied house. Miller accepts the court's condition that they no longer have contact with the neighbor whom they had known for 18 years. December 5th of 2022, Warner Bros. Seems confident moviegoers have forgiven and or forgotten Miller's alleged crimes because they moved up to theatrical release of The Flash to Father's Day weekend of 2023. January 13th of 2023, Ezra Miller appears in a Vermont court to agree to a plea deal. Ezra pled guilty to a misdemeanor unlawful trespass charges for a May 2022 incident when they allegedly stole liquor from a neighbor's home. Ezra Miller pled guilty this morning to a misdemeanor unlawful trespass in Vermont Superior Court and accepted the conditions imposed by the court. Miller will serve 1 year of probation and pay a fine of $500 with an additional surcharge of $192 per the conditions of the deal. The other charges are dismissed without prejudice. However, the burglary charges can be refiled if Miller violates the probation. January 30th of 2023, DC Studios reiterates its support for the Flash star and insists that the movie will go down in the superhero film canon. Ezra is completely committed to their recovery. Co-chairperson and CEO Peter Safran says it is a presentation of the DCU slate. Quote, "And we are fully supportive of that journey that they're on right now." He adds that the future of The Flash beyond the upcoming movie will still remain an open question. When the time is right, when they feel like they're ready to have a discussion, we'll all figure out what the best path forward is, says the director. The chairman also says, quote, I will say here that Flash is probably one of the greatest superhero movies ever made. As for the final regards, I am disappointed that such a decision is made, especially when you have someone who makes terrible ways of avoiding the law and excusing themselves. This is all down to personal opinion, and I hope to see the Flash be replaced with Grant Gustin sometime. However, I understand they are in different universes. I just can't really see anything changing as DC has completely made the entire Flash movie with Ezra Miller as the main protagonist Barry Allen. There could totally be a cameo appearance, but highly likely never going to become the protag in any of the Justice League films moving forward. Ezra Miller is now getting help, but who knows if Ezra will or will not take their decisions into account and become a good person as well as a good actor for the Flash. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, I love you all.